Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell re-signs with the Indiana Fever. So the best backcourt in the WNBA is back.
The best backcourt in the WNBA remains intact because Kelsey Mitchell is back, staying with the Indiana Fever and going back-to-back with that.
Why does big news always seem to drop when no one is paying attention? But this is huge. Kelsey Mitchell has officially re-signed with the Indiana Fever, securing her place as a key player for the franchise. From the moment she stepped onto the court at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Mitchell's time with the Fever has been unforgettable, impactful, and record-breaking. Mitchell pulls up for three, she's got it. If you thought this was an obvious move, think again. Mitchell had options. She was an unrestricted free agent, and some WNBA insiders even thought she might leave. But she's staying in Indiana, and the Fever just made a big statement about their future. So, what does this mean for the team, for Mitchell, and for the league? Let's talk about it.
The Fever posted, in 7 short years, Kelsey Mitchell has left an indelible mark on the franchise, the state of Indiana, and the entire WNBA.
Let's talk about it. Kelsey Mitchell is officially staying with the Indiana Fever. If you follow the WNBA, you know this is big news. But this isn't just about one player staying with her team. It's about what this means for the Fever, the league, and the future of women's basketball. Some people might say, well, this was expected. Sure, Kelsey Mitchell was always likely to re-sign. But just because something is expected doesn't mean it's not important. Locking her in is one of the biggest moves of the offseason, not because she was about to leave, but because of what her presence means for the team's future. Mitchell has been with the Fever since 2018. She's been through tough seasons, coaching changes, roster shakeups, missed playoffs, and multiple rebuilds. Through it all, she stayed consistent, showing up, putting in the work, and leading the team in scoring year after year. Let's be honest, how many players would stay loyal to a team that hasn't had a winning season in years? In a league where stars are always on the move chasing championships, Mitchell's decision to stay speaks volumes about her loyalty and belief in what the Fever are building. But that belief wasn't always certain. Many thought she might leave, and for good reason. As an unrestricted free agent, she had total control over her future. Unlike restricted free agents, who can have their offers matched by their team, Mitchell could have left with no restrictions. Then came the rumors. WNBA legend Candace Parker predicted she would leave. And, of course, we all remember what Sheryl Swoopes said.
Had mentioned Sheryl Swoopes, and it caused me to kind of chuckle a little bit, but it made me want to go back to some of the things Sheryl Swoopes said, and it's just kind of interesting seeing as Kelsey Mitchell, someone Sheryl Swoopes mentioned by name, has decided.
She caused a stir when she suggested that some Fever players wanted to leave, hinting that something was going on in the locker room that made them unhappy.
My point. There's a lot of other going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit going on around there.
It's a lot. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah. Now listen, there's a lot of play more.
When she made those comments, people immediately started speculating. Was she talking about Kelsey Mitchell? Was there drama behind the scenes? Clearly, that wasn't the case. If Mitchell wanted to leave, she could have, but she didn't. That alone should put an end to any talk about locker room issues. Whatever may have been going on, it wasn't enough to drive her away. That says a lot about where this team is headed. Now, let's talk about why this move is such a big deal. Mitchell isn't just another player. She's the heart of the Fever's offense. Last season, she averaged 19.2 points per game, shot 47% from the field, and hit 40% of her threes. Those aren't just good numbers, they're elite. You don't just replace a player like that. If Indiana had lost her, they would have had a huge hole to fill, one they likely couldn't have patched up in free agency. And it's not just about her scoring. Kelsey Mitchell has become one of the most dependable players in the WNBA. Since 2018, she has played in 235 out of 240 possible games. That kind of durability is rare, especially in a league where injuries can change the course of a season. Having a player who is always available is just as important as having one who puts up big numbers. Now, let's talk about her fit with Caitlin Clark because this is where things get really exciting. When the Fever drafted Clark with the number 1 overall pick, everything changed. Suddenly, this team went from being overlooked to being a must-watch. Clark's presence alone has put the Fever in the national spotlight. But she can't do it all by herself. She needs teammates who can play alongside her and bring out the best in her game. That's where Kelsey Mitchell comes in. Mitchell is the perfect backcourt partner for Clark.
Why?
Because her playing style complements Clark's in every way. Clark is a playmaker. She thrives with the ball in her hands, creating shots for herself and others. Mitchell, on the other hand, is an elite off-ball scorer. She doesn't need to control possessions to be effective. She can catch and shoot, cut to the basket, and space the floor, making things easier for her teammates. This is key because defenses will focus heavily on Clark. She'll get double-teamed, face top defenders, and teams will try to take the ball out of her hands. But when that happens, having a shooter like Mitchell on the perimeter forces defenses to stay honest. If they collapse on Clark, Mitchell will make them pay. On top of that, Mitchell fits perfectly into an up-tempo system, exactly the style Clark loves to play. Clark likes to push the pace, run in transition, and create open shots for teammates. Mitchell's ability to run the floor, spot up, and knock down shots on the move makes her a crucial part of this new-look Fever squad. We can't forget about Aaliyah Boston. She's the anchor of the Fever's frontcourt and was last season's Rookie of the Year for a reason. She's a dominant post player, a defensive force, and someone who controls the game from inside the paint. Now, with Mitchell on the perimeter, Clark running the offense, and Boston in the paint, the Fever are building something special. Reassigning Mitchell wasn't just about keeping a star player, it was about forming a core that can compete. But let's be real, they're not championship contenders yet. There's still work to do. They still need a true power forward to complete the lineup. Right now, they have versatile pieces, but they need someone who can rebound, defend, and stretch the floor. They also need more depth on the bench, because the difference between a good team and a championship team is having reliable role players who can contribute when the starters need a break. That's why bringing back Mitchell was so important. It's the first step. You can't build a winning team if you keep losing your best players. The Fever had to secure Mitchell before focusing on other pieces. The response to this signing has been massive. Caitlin Clark's reaction?
Duh.
That says it all. She never doubted Mitchell was coming back. Aaliyah Boston was just as excited, and Fever GM Amber Cox made it clear how much this move meant for the franchise. But it's not just the Fever taking notice. The entire league is watching. Even the Indiana Pacers, an NBA team, acknowledged Mitchell's return, which speaks volumes. A year ago, would an NBA team have gone out of their way to celebrate a WNBA free agent signing? Probably not. That's how much things are changing. Now, the big question is, what's next? Can the Fever make the leap into playoff contenders? Are they ready to take on the best teams in the league? More importantly, is this the beginning of something special in Indiana? One thing is certain, this team is no longer just about young talent. They have stars who are staying momentum on their side and are just a move or two away from being a real contender. Indiana has spent years stuck in rebuild mode, dealing with constant roster changes, coaching instability, and no clear direction. But the moment they drafted Caitlin Clark, everything changed. Suddenly, it wasn't just about developing young players, it became about building a real contender. Keeping Kelsey Mitchell was the first major step in that process. Mitchell's impact on the court is undeniable. She isn't just a great player, she's an elite scorer who can create her own shot at any time. She consistently puts up 18 to 20 points per game while shooting an incredible 47% from the field and 40% from three. That level of efficiency is rare for a perimeter player. She can score at all 3 levels, making her a nightmare for defenses. Losing her would have left a massive hole in the Fever's offense, one that wouldn't have been easy to fill. Keeping her pushes Indiana one step closer to becoming a real threat in the WNBA. If you guard Kelsey Mitchell too closely, she'll blow past you with her quick first step. If you give her space, she'll hit a 3 right in your face. Try to trap her, and she'll find an open teammate. That's where Caitlin Clark comes in. The best part about this backcourt is that neither Mitchell nor Clark needs to have the ball in their hands all the time to be effective. Both can play off the ball, which means the Fever can mix up their offense without becoming predictable. That's a big deal because young WNBA teams often struggle with being too easy to figure out. If a team only has one main scorer, defenses can adjust quickly. But if 2 players can handle the ball, score, and create plays, the defense is always scrambling to make a decision. Imagine Clark with the ball at the top of the key while Mitchell moves to the wing. The defense has tough choices. Stay locked on Clark and give Mitchell an open 3, send help to Mitchell and let Clark attack the rim, or focus on both and leave Aaliyah Boston open inside. This kind of flexibility in the offense is what separates good teams from great ones. Speaking of Boston, she's already one of the best young post players in the WNBA, but last season, she had to work harder than she should have for her shots. Defenses could collapse on her because the Fever didn't have enough outside shooting to keep them honest. Now, with Mitchell and Clark on the perimeter, teams won't be able to clog the paint against Boston as easily. That means she'll get more one-on-one matchups, better spacing, and an easier time dominating inside. Keeping Mitchell doesn't just add scoring, it makes life easier for everyone else on the team. Another underrated part of her game is how well she plays in transition. The Fever weren't great at fast breaks last season, but that's about to change. Clark loves pushing the tempo, and Mitchell is the perfect teammate for that style. She's fast, finishes well at the rim, and can pull up for a 3 without hesitation. If the Fever fully commit to an up-tempo style, they could be one of the best fast break teams in the league. That's the modern WNBA: spacing, shooting, and speed. Indiana is building one of the most dangerous offensive teams in the league, and it all starts with keeping their core players together. But while keeping Mitchell was huge, the Fever still have work to do. To take the next step, they need a power forward. Their roster has talent, but they're missing a versatile four who can defend, rebound, and shoot. A player like Sata Sabali would have been perfect, but since she's not available, the Fever need to either make a trade or sign a veteran free agent who fits that role. Another issue is bench depth. Right now, they need at least one more reliable scorer off the bench, someone who can come in and provide instant offense. Depth is what separates playoff teams from championship teams, and the Fever still need to build up their second unit. Another thing to watch is how Mitchell and Clark adjust to playing together. We know they'll be a great offensive duo, but will Mitchell take on more of a catch-and-shoot role? Will Clark be willing to play off the ball more to let Mitchell create? These are the things that will determine how far the Fever can go next season. One thing is certain, Indiana is no longer a rebuilding team. They have a superstar rookie, an elite veteran, and a dominant post player. That's the foundation of a championship-caliber squad. Since the news broke, social media has been on fire. Clark's reaction? A simple duh, showing she never doubted Mitchell was staying. Aaliyah Boston was just as excited, and the Fever's front office made it clear how much this move meant for the franchise. But here's something nobody's talking about. The Fever are finally starting to get respect. Even the Indiana Pacers, an NBA team, publicly celebrated Mitchell's return. NBA teams don't usually acknowledge WNBA free agent signings unless it's a big deal. That shows how much things are changing. This is bigger than one player re-signing with her team. It's about the Fever becoming a team that people need to take seriously. They're not just a rebuilding project anymore, and they're not just happy to be in the mix. They're looking to compete. So, what's the ceiling for this team next season? Are they championship contenders yet? Probably not. But can they be a top 4 team in the league? Absolutely. And let's be honest, the WNBA is more exciting when new teams are rising. For too long, the same franchises have dominated the league. The Fever's rise brings something fresh and exciting. Now, all eyes are on Indiana. They have the talent, the momentum, and the fan support. The question is, can they take the next step? With Kelsey Mitchell staying, the answer is starting to look like yes. So what do you think? Was this the right move for Mitchell? Does this make the Fever a playoff lock? And what's next for the squad? Are they contenders or still a few pieces away? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the WNBA. More news and analysis coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.